Good morning. MA Philosophy MPY001 Block number 5 Unit number 2 Indian Metaphysics Objectives. The main objective of this unit is to provide a sketch of Indian metaphysics. This unit looks into the fundamental questions raised and answered by Indian metaphysics and outlines its conceptual structure. It will provide a comprehensive account of Indian materialism, realism, dualism, pluralism, idealism, and absolutism of different schools of Indian tradition. Introduction. Metaphysics is the theory of reality. It raises profound questions about the nature of matter, life, mind, God, space, time, numbers of causation, freedom and fate, and of objects and events. When what sets metaphysics apart from other inquiries is the distinctive method of approach where it seeks to answer the questions only through natural faculties of which reason is the chief. It is not possible to speak of Indian metaphysics in the singular. Each school of Indian philosophy has developed a distinct metaphysical view that is consistent with its epistemology and ethics. The motive of metaphysical thinking is the Indian tradition has been practical and not barely theoretical. Questions related to the universe and creation have been subordinated to the concern for the ultimate destiny of man and its fulfillment. Indian materialism Charvaka. The school of Charvaka or Lokayata held a metaphysics of materialism. The Charvakas were materialistic and naturalistic because they believed in the reality of physical nature alone. Every object being a form assumed by natural elements. The process by which the element assume the forms are also natural, not guided or controlled by any supernatural agency. Since Pratyaksha is the only Praman accepted by Charvak, the four elements earth, water, fire, and air only categories are the only categories accepted by it. The fifth element, Akash, is not accepted as it is not an object of perception. All objects in the world, including human beings, are made up of the four basic elements. The differences among the types of object in the world are due to differences among the patterns in which the four elements combine with one another. The Atman is nothing but the physical body of man. The living man is conscious, but consciousness emerges when the material particles of the body come together in a particular pattern and form a particular structure. When that pattern deteriorates and the body disintegrates and is destroyed, the constituents separate themselves and the emergent quality disappears. The Charvaka brings in a analog of the instance when yeast is added to grape juice to make wine, which acquires the quality of intoxicating power, which is possessed neither by yeast nor grape juice. The Charvaka argues that God or an ethical potency need not be posited to create the world and its form, because it believes that the elements come together naturally and produce the forms without any specific purpose. This mm, this mechanistic and naturalistic model of creation of the object of the world is called uh, uh, Yadarchavad. Realism of Nyaya Vaisesik. The Nyaya Vaisesik classifies reality under the few categories padarthas in order to facilitate a comprehensive treatment of reality. The Vaisesik recognizes seven such categories. One of them is abhava or non-being, that stands for all kind of non-existent, which is classified into four: pragabhav, prior non-existence; pradhamsa bhav, a non-existence after destruction; uh, Anyonya Bhav, mutual non-existent; and Atyanta Bhav, absolute non-existence. The remaining six categories represents various kinds of being bhava and include द्रव्य, substance, गुण, qualities, कर्म, action, सामान्य, universal, वैशेष, विशेष, particular, and सामान्य, inherence. Nyaya has admitted 16 categories, which are praman, source of valid knowledge; pramey, object of knowledge; samsaya, doubt; prayojan and drashtanta, example; siddhanta, doctrine; avyav, member of syllogism; tarka, hypothetical argument; निमय निमाय, ascertainment, निर्णय, ascertainment, वाद, discussion; जल्प, wrangling; वितंडा, destructive; dialectic; हेत्वाभास, fallacies of inference; छल, quibbling; जाति, futile objections; and Nigrahasthanas, points of defeat in a debate, except Pramey. The categories of Nyaya are logical and epistemological, while the 7 categories of Vaisesika are exclusively metaphysical. The important notables Prameyas, according to Nyaya, are 12 in number. The Atman, the physical body; senses, objects of the world; cognition or consciousness; mind, activity; imperfection; life after death; result; pain; and final liberation. The Nyaya school regards the Atman as essentially unconscious. Consciousness arises in the Atman as an ad- advantageous property when perception occurs. Nyaya maintains that the Atman constitute an infinite plurality, and each Atman is the knower, doer, enjoyer, and sufferer. God is one of the Atmans, but the greatest of them. Unlike other Atmans, God is by nature conscious, and his consciousness is eternal and infinite. God is only the efficient cause of creation, the eternal atoms being the material cause. The atoms are brought together by God in accordance with the ethical merits and demerits of the Atman. The Vaisesika school defines substance dravya as that in which qualities and actions inhere samaveta. Qualities and actions cannot exist except in the substance. The relationship between substance and its qualities and action is the inseparable relation of inherence. Some some why. There are 9 kinds of substances: earth, water, fire, air, ether, time, space, spirit, and mind. Of the mind substances, the first four, that is earth, water, fire, and air, are constituted by atoms. Mind is also atomic in size, but the other four substances, earth, substances, ether, time, space, and spirit, are infinite. Time and space are divisible, and divisions like the past, the present, and future of time, and directions are like north and south of space, are conventional and artificial. Qualitatively, the Atman, mind, and the atoms of the elements are different from one another. This difference is made possible because each individual has its own particular vishes that distinguishes it from others. One of the 4 kinds of atoms, each group differs from another qualitatively. They are in imper, imperceptible to human beings except yogis. For ordinary human beings, the existence of atoms is proved by inference. All perceptible objects are composed of parts and are therefore divisible, but the division into parts cannot be carried on an infinitum. Therefore, we had to stop at some point uh, where further division is not possible. This fundamental unit is atom. Anu, the atom anu, are imperceptible, and so are their qualities. The 2 atoms combine to form a dyad, dyanuk, dyanuk. Three dyads combine together to form a triad, tri- Trianuk. The triad is the least visible unit. It is said to possess the size of mote in the sunbeam. Quality is defined as the being that is different from substance and activity, and that is itself without qualities and activities. The list of 24 qualities listed in the basic school are color, taste, smell, touch, number, magnitude, distinctness, uh, pra- पृथक पृथकत्व, कंजंक्शन, संयोग, डिसजंक्शन, विभाग, नियरनेस, टेम्पोरल एंड स्पेटियल, remoteness, temporal and spatial, cognition, pleasure, pain, desire, hate, effort, weight, fluidity, uh, basicity, tendency, samskara, unseen merit, unseen demerit, adrashta, and sound. Action belongs to finite substances and is the cause of conjunction and distinction. It can only be a formal uh, asham y and an instrumental nimitta cause, but not a material cause, since only a substance can be a material cause. Actions are of five kinds: throwing upward, throwing downward, contraction, expansion, and locomotion. The universal samanya jati is defined as that which is eternal, uh, nitya, and which inheres in many. It is dependent on our cognition, uh, Bodhipaksham. It exists in substance, qualities, and activities. It is of two kinds, the higher and the lower. The highest para, beyond which there is no higher in being Satta. The particular Vises is defined as that which is ultimate and exists in eternal substances. It exists only in substances, and that too only in ultimate eternal substances. The particular is the ultimate differentiator. To illustrate, all the earth atoms are alike, yet they are differentiated from one another by each one having a particular inherent samanyavad, samvay, inherent samvay is defined as the relation of inseparability. Inherence is found between the whole and its part, between substance and qualities, between substance and activities, and between the universal on the one hand and substances, qualities, and activities on the other. The whole in a whole inheres in its part, qualities and activities, inheres in substance, and universal inherence in substances, qualities, and activities. However, no higher universal inheres in the lower universal. Non-being above is defined as what is not or as different from the six positive categories. Nyaya Vaisesika holds that reality is both positive and negative. Non-being is real only with only with reference to our thought and is not related to any form of being. Yet Nyaya Vaisesik holds that non-being is perceived but only when accompanied by the thought. Had the object been here, it would have been perceived. Non-being is of two kinds: rational absence, samsarga bhav, and mutual negation, अन्योन्य भाव. Relation absence is the absence of something in something else, like the absence of the pen on the table. Relation absence is the three kind: prior negation, प्राग भाव, posterior negation, प्रध्वंस भाव, and absolute or infinite negation, uh, अत्यंत भाव. Realism of the Sautantric and Vaivasika. The Vaivasika and Sautantric school of Buddhism are affiliated to the Theravada or Hinian sects of Buddhism. Buddhist realism takes its origin from the Sarvastivadin, who are the advocates of the doctrine which says that all things, no matter whether they belong to the past, present, or future, exist. Sarvastivad, the Vaibhasika, holds the view that the universe is ultimately constituted by simple, unanalyzable elements called dharmas. The dharmas are regarded as impermanent or momentary, kshanik. There is no whole as distinct from the parts. Concrete objects are mere aggregates Iskandas of number of dharmas, the, ag- the aggregation of the elements is affected by the principle of causality conveyed by the doctrine of Pratitya Samutpad, theory of dependent origination. Both matter and mind are considered to be real. They are real in virtue of their simplicity, individuality, and unanalyzability. Though they are both impermanent, the universe is ultimately constituted of 75 elements, 72 of which are conditioned uh, Sanskrit, and the remaining three are unconditioned Asanskrit. This distinction suggests that the universe is the field where human beings are thrown into a state of bondage and which provides then opportunities to win back their freedom or liberation. The elements dharmas conditioned by avidya and passions that accompany it cooperate with one another so as to present themselves as a stream. Shastra or phenomenal life, samsara, marked by the presence of pain, dukha, or else the cause of pain, samudaya, and are held in a stage of bondage. The elements are open to subjection to the counteracting process of their separation from one another and their separation through the means of spiritual discipline marg resulting in the emergence of uh, pragya pragya. They are reduced to a state of quiescence free from the pain and cause of pain, which is the state of nirvana. The Vaibhasika school classifies dharmas into five: one, rupa, matter; number two, chitta, consciousness; number three, uh, s- cetasik cetasik, states and characteristics of the mind; number three, chitta, viparyukta, samskar, powers that are neither mental nor material but common to both mind and matter; and number five, asamskrita dharmas, the unconditioned dharmas. The realism of the Vaibhasikas is subject to the limitations imposed upon it by the core ideas of Buddhism, namely momentariness, Kshanikbad, theory of non-self, Nairatmabad, and theory of particularity, Swalakshana, as opposed to generality or universality, Samanya. The Sautantrikas oppose the Vaibhasikas' contention that the elements exist in the past, present, and the future. The admission of the continuous existence of things through the past and the present and the future amounts to the acceptance of a form of eternalism, which is unacceptable to Buddhist metaphysics as a whole. The Sautantrikas criticize the Vaibhasika contention that uh, whatever is an object of thought exists, whatever exists admits of being thought of, but the uh, converse is not necessarily true. The Sautantrikas consider some of the elements admitted by Vaibhasika to be fictitious, like Akas, space, Nirvana, Chitta, Viparyukta, non-mental powers, and the past and future aspects of elements. The Sautantrikas list 43 elements classified under five heads. Number one, Rupa, matter, comprising four primary forms, Upadan, and four secondary or derivatives form, Upadaya, Roop. Number two, Vedana, feelings, including pleasure, pain, and the neutral feeling. Number three, Sangya, sense or sense organs, consisting of five external sense organs and one internal sense organ called chit or manas. Number one, Vijnana, consciousness of six kinds corresponding to the six sense organs. Number five, samskaras, powers or forces numbering 20 in all, including 10 goods kusala and 10 bads akusala ones. Like Vaibhasikas, Sautantrikas also admit the reality of the twofold world of matter and mind. The Vaibhasikas hold that our knowledge of objective reality is direct and immediate and is yielded by perception, while the Sautantrikas regard this knowledge as indirect and mediate. derivable from inference instead of from perception. Realism of Mimamsa. The Mimamsa propounds the metaphysics of ethical action. Ethical action advocates qualitative and quantitative pluralism. It substitute ethical ethical action for God Himself. The efficacy of ethical action is a force that creates the form of the world and is the controller of the world organizer and its organizer. The world is meant for action and is created by action. Dharma is the central concern of the Mimamsa and it is that which supports the universe. Ethical action must be what answers to a Vedic injunction. Uh, Veda Pratipadya. Dharma brings forth the desired fruits of action. If ethically right, it brings forth enjoyment. If ethically wrong, it results in suffering. Adharma. The Mimamsa does not regard dharma or adharma as qualities, gunas, but as constituting a potential force, what is extraordinary, apurva, or the unseen, adrashta. This force or shakti resides in the Atman of the agent and controls and determines the future life of the Atman. Action performed at the present produces its fruit often after the lapse of time, but causation is a continuous process which without any time intervening between the processes of the cause and the appearance of the effect. The Mimamsa therefore postulates that the action we perform does not end when our activity ends, but assumes the form of the potential force that remains as a potency until the circumstances becomes ripe for its fruition. This force called the Shakti is unseen, adrashta, and since it is extraordinary, it is called Apurva. The Mimamsa accept the reality of the Atman as distinct from the mind, manas, senses, and the physical body. It is identified with the I consciousness, ahamdi, ahamdi. Plurality of the Atmas is accepted. Each Atman is regarded as infinite. Consciousness is not regarded as the essential nature of Atman, but arises in it as an uh, advanced, adventitious qualities. When manas comes into contact with it, the Atman itself is the seer, doer, and enjoyer. The problem of God is taken up by Mimamsa in the context of the interpretation of the meanings of the words of the Veda. Gemini regarded the relationship between the word and the meaning as innate, and therefore did not feel the need to posit God to fix the meaning of the words. Dualistic metaphysics of Sankhya presents a qualitative dualism of spirit and matter, the material principle being Prakriti, and the spiritual element Purusha. The Purush, which is of the nature of pure consciousness, throws a reflection of its consciousness on Prakriti and this initiates a process of evolution. While Prakriti is one, Purush are infinite in number. Prakriti evolves the universe through its three constituents, gunas or sattva pure, rajas active, and tamas inert. All the objects of the universe are composed of three gunas. The original nature of the sattva is pleasantness, priti of the rajas, and drive of the tamas, dullness and inertia. None of the gunas are found alone without the other two in the objects of the world. One or the two other of the three gunas dominates over the other two. Prior to evolution, the gunas remain in equilibrium in Prakriti due to inexplicable association of the Purush with Prakriti, the reflection of due to the inexplicable association of the Purush with the Prakriti. The reflection of the Purush on is thrown on is thrown on prior to evolution. The gunas remain in equilibrium in Prakriti due to inexplicable association of the Purusha with Prakriti. The reflection of the Purush is thrown on Prakriti that destroys the original equilibrium of the gunas. Evolution of the world out of Prakriti follows. Various theories have been offered in the Samkhya school to explain the nature of the contract between Prakriti and Purush that vary from each other. But according to all those theories, the contact has no beginning, and therefore the universe is beginningless. The Sankhya in its atheistic form gives 25 categories Prakriti and its evolutes and evolutes Purusha that evolve from Prakriti during the course of evolution. They are not the meanings of words padarthas as in Nayabhasistic, but as ontological entities. The theistic Sankhya adds the God in addition to the 25. The Purush is a pure knower, drashta, but not a doer, karta. Action belongs to manas, ahamkara, and it evolutes, all of which are evolutes of Prakriti. The Purush exists by himself, separate and unrelated to everything else. Kaivalya. The Sankhya accept the plurality of Purushas because it maintains that birth, death, and all other physical characteristics are separate for each individual. If Purushas are not many, when one man is born, all other must be born at the same time. If one man knows an object, all the other must know it. If one man acts, all the other must act. Similarly, enjoyment, suffering, God and evil must be the same for all. Since Purusha is a pure witness and never the doer, the existence of different egos implies that they are the reflections of different Purushas. The essential nature of the Purush is consciousness, Chit. In the state of bondage after evolution, the Purusha may think that it is happy and miserable, but it is but this is due to the lack of discrimination between itself and the higher evolutes of Prakriti, to which the dualities of happiness and sorrow actually belong. It is like the coloring of the pure, colorless, transparent glass by the reflection of some color. When the Purush identified itself as pure consciousness, distinct from mm, all the evolutes of Prakriti, then it is said to be liberated Kaivalya. Relativistic pluralism of Jainism. The Jaina metaphysics. Realistic relativistic pluralism of Jainism. The Jaina metaphysics is a relativistic pluralism. It is realistic as it accepts the existence of an external uh, uh, it exists it as it accepts the existence of an experimental reality. It is relativistic as it denies the validity of any absolute predication of reality. It is pluralistic as it accepts the plurality of substances. Jaina metaphysics is metaphysics of substance. Even motion, rest, space, and action are substances. Jainism regards every object as multimodal, anekant, and as possessing many characteristics. Jainism distinguishes between the substances that possesses the characteristics dharmi and the characteristics possessed by the substance dharmas. Characteristics are further divided into essential characteristics, gunas, and changing modes, prat- uh, par- paryayas. Both change and permanence are real if the object has both positive and negative characteristics. From one point of view, even if object has the characteristics P, from another point of view it has the characteristics P. Every object has the characteristics of origin, duration, and decay. Jainism does not accept the view that the reality of an object lies in performing the function of which it is meant. mm, अर्थ क्रिया कारित्व. Substance is divided into the extended astikaya and the unextended anastikaya. Extended substance is further divided into the animate and the inanimate. The animate substance called the jeev is one that displays the characteristics of consciousness, chetana, chetana, Lakshano Jiva. The Jivas are of two kinds, the liberated and the bound. The bound is again of two types, the moving and the unmoving. The non-moving are the plants that have only the sense of touch. Moving Jivas are of four kinds, those with five senses like human beings, those with four senses like bees, those with three senses like ants, and those with two senses like birds. The Atman is identified with the Jiva, and the relation between the Atman and consciousness is both identity and difference. The Atman is endowed with both doership and enjoyership. Atman are infinite in number, yet they coexist. Jainism rejects the reality of God as the universal spirit and creator of the world. They reject all they reject all the proofs for the existence of God. The Atman, although not a material substance, is regarded as extended, is being coextensive with the body that it inhabits. By nature, Atman is infinite, but it has the capacity to expand or contract depending upon the karma that is present in it. Idealism of Vigyanvad school of Buddhism. Vigyanvad school of Buddhism maintained that Vigyan idea alone is real. To the Madhyamika claim that everything is illusory, Vigyanvadin replies that every illusion is a kind of cognition. Vigyan cannot be reflected in any kind of dialectical argument. Vigyanvadins argue that since cognition and its object are inseparable, and since we cannot conceive or even speak of an object which is known, the external objects which are said to exist independent of cognition are inadmissible. If the object is external, then there can be no relation of its identity, sarupya, with cognition, which is demanded by the possibility of its being cognized. The Vigyanvadins argue that the phenomena of illusion, hallucination, and dream, which involve cognitions without there being any external objects corresponding to them, testify to the fact that cognition creates its own object instead of being determined by objects existing independently of it. Thus, the Vigyanvadins concludes that there are no external objects. Madhyamika showed that the ultimate reality cannot be described either in positive or negative terms. Even the phenomenal world cannot be described because none of the categories we use in describing the world has its own nature. Nagarjuna held the theory of naturelessness, miss uh, naturelessness, Nesvabhavata, and attacked the view that everything has its own nature and character. Sarvam Solakshanam. If everything is devoid of its own characteristics and is void, then the absolute reality itself must be void. Whatever is experienced is only an experience, only an appearance of the void. Appearance is the empirical truth, samvritti satya, and the void is the absolute truth, para, paramarthika satya. Then even the Buddha, his doctrine, aggregates the basis and the elements are not ultimately true. If the world is not real, it could not have been born, and therefore was never born. Non-dualistic absolutism. Advaitavad. The metaphysics of Advait Vedanta of Shankaracharya is centered on the establishment of the reality of only the Brahman, showing that the world cannot have an independent being of its own and demonstrating that the being of the world is rooted in the Brahman. Shankaracharya accepts the reality of Brahman on the basis of the Upanishads. The The Swarupa Lakshana defining or constitutive characteristics of Brahman is Sat Chit Anand, infinite being, consciousness, and bliss. Advait introduces the concept of levels of reality, which are not levels of truth but levels of being, Sat. Advaita propounds four levels of being, the lowest of which is the insignificant being. Uh, Tuchya Sattva. It includes the merely imaginary, fanciful, and self-contradictory, like the horns of a head or lotuses of the heavenly river, sky lotuses, son of a barren woman, etc. They belong merely to imagination and are acknowledged as having no place in reality. The next higher level is the illusionary being, Pratibhasik Sattva, an apparent being, the example of which is the perception of an illusionary snake. Higher than the illusionary being, the pragmatic being, Vyavaharik Sat, identified with the empirical reality. It is the product of our past ethical actions, karmas, and is meant for future actions, while the illusionary being is contradicted by perceptual experience within the world itself and the experience of action. The pragmatic being is non-contradicted either by perception or action, or but by dialectical reason and the intuition of Brahman. In the innate self-contradictions of the pragmatic world are revealed to the light of reason by its own self-reflection, just as the illusory being presupposes the pragmatic being. The pragmatic being, due to its inherent self-contradictions, presupposes the ultimate being, paramarthik sat, that is above all contradictions, uncontradicted and unchanged in the past, present, and future. The ultimate being marks the pinnacle of existence. Each of the lower levels of being presupposes and is superimposed adhyast upon the higher one. The Advaitins use the word Maya to refer to the appearance of the objective world as an existent and non-existent existence at the higher level. The world experience is a cosmic illusion, whereas the appearance of the snake is in rope. Snake illusion is an individual illusion. The cosmic illusion is identified with Maya, and the individual illusion is called avidya. Although most Advaitins use the term synonymously, Maya cannot be accepted as real, since the illusion of Brahman sublates sublates it. Neither can it be called unreal, as it is experienced by one and all until the Brahman is realized. Hence, it is ontologically indescribable. Sada sada sadil sadilakshana Sada Sadvilakshana. Maya is treated as a positive entity, Bhavaroop. It powers being, concealment of the true nature of Brahman, uh, Ava, Avarna Shakti, and the projection of the world of multiplicity, uh, Vikshep Shakti. Advait accepts only the cognition which is uncontradictable, uh, Abhadya and absolute true, and only the Brahman stands this trust of truth, and this justifies the nomenclature of Advaita, non-dualism. The Brahman since science through the individual as the witness of self, actions, cognitions, and the states of the mind. This is called the witness consciousness, Shakshi Chaitanya. This witness consciousness, determined by the psychophysical adjuncts, is the Jeev. The witness consciousness is continuous with the Brahman and is non-different from it. The Jeev, in its identification as a separate entity distinct from the Brahman, is a mere appearance. It is essentially identical to the Brahman. Just as the ego Ahankar is continuous with the Brahman, so is the personal God Ishvara. Shankaracharya uses the term Brahman for both, calling them a higher Brahman, Para Brahman, and the lower Brahman, Apara Brahman. The lower Brahman is the same as the higher Brahman, but as facing the world of objectivity, that is with reference or Maya, it is never overpowered by Maya like the Jeev. The Iswara is therefore never in bondage. Non-dualism of the qualified whole. Vishishtadvait. Vishishtadvait holds the view that Brahman is non-dual but qualified or characterized by the world and the individual spirits, both of which form its body, Sarira. Vishishtadvait broadly divides the categories padarthas into the mean of cognition pramanas and the objects of cognition prameyas. The objects of knowledge are of two kinds: substance dravya and non-substance adravya. Substances are of two kinds: the conscious and the unconscious. The unconscious are of two kinds: prakriti and kala. Prakriti is divided into 24 categories as in the Sankhya. The conscious of is of two kinds: the inward pratyak and the outward parak. The inward is of two kinds: the Atman and the God. The Atman is of three kinds: the bound, the liberated, and the eternal outward. Consciousness is of two kinds: the eternal force, Nitya Vibhuti, and the attribute consciousness, Dharma Bhut Gyan. Ramanujacharya maintains that the three attributes are not the constitutive qualities of Prakriti but merely their qualities. Ramanujacharya regards Prakriti as eternal and calls it by many names like that non-transient Akshara, Avidya, Maya, etc. Ramanujacharya accepts the concept of eternal force of energy Nitya Vibhuti from the Pancharatna. It is same as the pure transparent Shuddha Sattva and is also called the pure essence. It is never found mixed with other attributes of Prakriti. It is by nature unconscious and achetana, yet thoroughly self-relieving and blissful. Anandamika. It constitutes the bodies, the means of enjoyment, the objects of enjoyment, and also the process of enjoyment by God. The eternally liberated souls and the liberated souls. God's body has six attributes: knowledge, jnana, power, shakti, strength, bala, lordship, aishwarya, heroic qualities, birya, and splendor, tejas. The concept of attribute consciousness, dharma, bhut, gyan is an important contribution of Visishta Dvaita. The I is the knower, reveal itself to itself, but not to the consciousness revealing the object. Thus, we have two consciousness: one that reveals itself to another, and the other that reveals itself to itself only. The former belongs to the latter, and it called its attribute dharma. It is called attribute consciousness. Dharma Bhut Gyan. The Atman, according to Vishishtadvait, is by nature Atmic Anu, but its attribute consciousness, which is inseparable from it, it is infinite, it is dependent on God, and is subsidiary to Sesahim. As as the body is to the spirit, it is eternal, different from each individual, and by nature blissful. It is the knower, doer, and enjoyer, jnana, karta, and bhokta. The nature of the Atman is to be the I, consciousness, ahandi, and not mere consciousness, gyan, or mere witness consciousness, sakshi, chaitanya. The Atman is of three kinds: the bound, the liberated, and the eternal. The bound souls are the ones living in the world of Prakriti. The liberated are those souls that have freed themselves from Prakriti, and the eternal souls are the eternal servants of God who live with Him and have never done anything against His wishes. The liberated and the eternal souls live with God, enjoy like Him, and are similar to Him. They are not identical to Him and do not have the powers of creation and destruction. Dualistic absolutism of Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya proclaimed complete difference between the Brahman and the world, and maintained that the non-duality referred to by the Upanishads has to be interpreted as that between a king and his subjects, or one who is independent, swatantra, and one who is dependent of the former, partantra. Since Madhvacharya rejects any relationship of being between God and the world, his philosophy is dualism. Dvaitavad, it is primarily a dualism of God and the individual spirit, and a dualism of God and the world. The world of matter, Prakriti, is different from God and the individual spirits. Thus, the philosophy of of Madhvacharya is metaphysically qualitative dualism and quantitative pluralism. As a qualitative pluralist, he makes use of the basic doctrine of the particular basis. Madhvacharya broadly divides the categories into the independent Swatantra and the dependent Partantra. The only dependent reality is God. The dependent category falls into two kinds: the conscious and the unconscious, the individual Atman and super being. Like the concerts of Vishnu, Lakshmi are conscious. The the supernals are eternally liberated and perform certain cosmic and divine functions. Here, Madhvacharya follows the line of traditional Vaisnavite mythology and the Pancharatra. He classifies the individual Atman into four kinds: those that are liberated, like the Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic soul, who is called the highest soul, Jivottam; those that are capable of obtaining salvation, Mukti Yogas; those that are always transmigrating, Nitya Samsaris; and those that are eternally damned, uh, Tamo Yoga; those that deserves only darkness. This classification involves the doctrine of predestination, which is unacceptable to many Vedantins. The unconscious reality is of three kinds: Prakriti, space and time. Another classification enlists nine categories: substance, Dravya, quality, guna, action, karma; universal, Samanya, particular, Vishesh, and the characterized, Vishisht, or the whole, Amsi; force, Shakti; similarity, Sadrasya, and negation, Abhava. Substances are said to be 19 in number: God, his consort, Sri Lakshmi; innate forces, samskaras, vasanas; the Atman, space, Prakriti; the three attributes, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas; mind, Manas; and the senses, Indriyas; the elements, Panchabhutas; the subtle elements, Tanmatras; ignorance, Avidya; the word wounds, Varnas; darkness, uh, Andhakaras; time, Kala; reflection, Pratibimb; cosmic reason, Mahat; ego, Ahamkaras; and individual reason, Buddhi. Madhvacharya's list of qualities includes mental and ethical qualities such as self-control, Sama; mercy, Kripa; endurance, Titiksha; gravity, Gambhir; beauty, Saundarya; courage, Shaurya; fear, Bhaya; Bhaya, liberality, uh, Anudarya; strength, Bal; and shame, Lajja. The particular vices plays an important role in the philosophy of Madhvacharya. The particulars are found everywhere and exist in all things, eternal and transient, conscious and unconscious, God and the world. Madhvacharya identifies the Atman and the Atman with the witness consciousness, Sakshi Chaitanya. It is of the it is of the nature of I consciousness, Ahandi, which is different from the ego, Ahamkar, which is an evolute of Prakriti. It is the knower, Gyata, doer, Karta, and enjoyer, Bharta, of the fruit of actions. The Atman are atomic and constitute a plurality, each having a particular basis. They are absolutely dependent Paratantra on God, who alone is self-dependent, Swatantra or independent by nature. Every Atman is existent, conscious and blissful. Sat Chit Anand, through ignorance, avidya, and of original nature, it becomes entangled in Prakriti. This entanglement is its bondage. Every Atman is entirely different from God, Prakriti, and the other Atmas. The Upanishadic statements that speak of the identity of the Atman and Brahman are to be interpreted as meaning that the Atman is similar to the Brahman, just as the reflection of a face in the mirror. Reflection of a face in the mirror is similar to the face. The Atman is self-conscious, self-revealing, and self-luminous, yet its consciousness is distinct from itself, just as the specific gravity of a substance is distinct from that substance. Maya and Avidya are treated as separate from Prakriti in the philosophy of Madhvacharya. He regards Maya as the mysterious will of God, uh, Iswariksha, and Avidya as the ignorance of the Atman. Avidya conceals the true nature of the Atman, and it conceals the Brahman from the Atman. The latter results in the Atman developing a false notion of independence from God. Like Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya identifies the personal God with the Brahman. He is the creator, sustainer and destroyer of the world, and has infinite auspicious qualities. Madhvacharya insists upon five kinds of differences. Panch Bhed. Number one, difference between the Atman, Jeev, and the Brahman, God. Number two, difference between all that is unconscious, Prakriti, time, and space, and the Brahman. Number three, difference of every Atman from every other. Number four, difference of every Atman from all that is unconscious, Prakriti, time, and space. And five, difference of every unconscious entity from every other unconscious entity. Madhvacharya accepts not only the difference of every member of a class from every other member of the same class, mm, Sajatiya Bhed, but also every member of the class from every member of every other class, Bijatiya Bhed, but also the difference of every element of the content of a whole from every other element is that whole, and from that whole also he says that every element is a particular basis and is not merely distinguished but differentiated from the other. Let us sum up. Every school of Indian philosophy has developed a profound metaphysics of its own, which is intertwined with the epistemology and ethics of that school. Indian metaphysics has evolved through a rich tradition of exegesis and dialectics, ranging from materialism to spiritual absolutism. Indian metaphysics displays a wide range of standpoints. Thank you.